Welcome to the Pre-Snap Podcast presented by Line Star. All things fantasy football with a sprinkle of sports betting. Alongside Tyler Weeman, I'm Shannon Somerville. We are previewing this Thursday night football game between the Bucs and the Ravens. Both teams struggling a bit. However, the Bucs coming into the season with the second best odds to go to the Super Bowl. And now Tom Brady's leading a team with a losing record through the first 7 weeks of the season. Something he hasn't done in 20 years. What do you make of Tom Brady's struggles?
Man, it's brutal in Tampa Bay right now. But I think it's really based on this O-line. This O-line is terrible, and he's really not getting time. They can't run the ball. It's just struggle street.
A brutal loss against the Panthers, who had just traded away Christian McCaffrey. They had a third-string quarterback in. Reporters were saying in the Bucs locker room it was absolute shell shock.
Yeah, but the Panthers did also just fire their coach. A lot of the time when that happens, the team gets a little energized. But still, surprising they beat the Bucs.
The good news for them is they are in a division that is terrible.
Yeah.
And so they're actually still atop the NFC South.
Yeah, they will right the ship eventually, I'm sure.
Atop the AFC North is the Baltimore Ravens at 4-3 on the season. Lamar Jackson having himself a season. He's on pace for 1,238 rushing yards, which would surpass the number that he got in 2019 where he won the MVP. So having a stellar season. What do you make of his season so far?
Yeah, his season's been great. He's been really running the ball really well. However, over the last couple games, he's had a little trouble throwing the ball. So I think it is interesting. We are going against a Bucs secondary that's very beat up right now, which we'll talk about soon.
Lamar Jackson's rushed 510 yards this season. That's more than the entire Tampa Bay team this season.
Yeah.
Goes to show you what you were talking about earlier with that offensive line, just not getting it done. So let's get into our injury report for this Thursday night game because we have a lot to go over here, and some could be pretty impactful for your fantasy plays or your prop bets. We're taking the information from SixScore.com, insider knowledge from professional sports team doctors with over 100 years experience. Check them out at SixScore.com. We've got a ton of injuries here, starting with the Baltimore defense. And we've got free safety Marcus Williams out with a broken hand. He's on the IR. Just remember that. And nose tackle Michael Pierce out with a biceps tear, also on the IR. New to the injury report, Calais Campbell's out with an illness. And you've also got cornerbacks Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey questionable, which could be a little impactful when you're considering Tom Brady's going to be the one going up against them and his receivers.
Yeah, and two really good receivers in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So.
On the Tampa Bay offense, speaking of Mike Evans, he is limited with an ankle injury. Tight end Cameron Brate is out with a neck injury. Wide receiver Russell Gage, hamstring injury, also out. Wide receiver Julio Jones, questionable. He is limited with a knee injury. And on the offensive line, Luke Godke is out of this one. And also on that offensive line, Shaq Mason is limited with an ankle injury. Remember that Ryan Jensen and Aaron Stinney are on the IR with significant knee injuries. A lot of injuries piling up on this Tampa Bay offense.
Yeah, it's struggle street, as we like to say on the pre-snap podcast. Just remember, though, when we are saying limited, we're talking about the limited for in practice. Most of these players that are questionable and limited, I would say, are going to be a full go once it comes tomorrow for the game.
Let's take a look now at the Baltimore offense. Tight end Mark Andrews with a knee injury is questionable, but is expected to play. Wide receiver Rashad Bateman questionable. He was on the injury report with a foot injury, and that is the same foot injury that kept him out of 2 games. Keep an eye on that. He was a full participant in practice as of Wednesday. And running back Gus Edwards, questionable, limited in practice. And offensive tackle Ronnie Staley, questionable. He was a full participant, though. Taking a look at the Tampa Bay defense, 4 of 6 defensive backs are out due to injuries in this one. Cornerback Sean Murphy, bunting quad injury, he's out. Antoine Winfield is out with a concussion. Linebacker KJ Britt, remember, he's on the IR. Cornerback Carlton Davis with a hip injury is out. And safety Logan Ryan on the IR as well with a foot ailment. So Also piling up some injuries on that Tampa Bay defense.
Yeah, primarily in the secondary too, which is definitely a little worrisome. I would be a little more worried about this if the Ravens used their wide receivers more. They're at a league low in playing 2+ wide receiver sets, so makes it a little better for the Bucs. Maybe the Ravens realize this, go to a little more two wide receivers, but it's not looking great for the secondary.
Challenging Lamar Jackson to throw the ball a little bit more than maybe he's used to.
And the Bucs are a pass funnel defense, so they try to get people to pass. So this is definitely concerning for them.
Let's take a look at our daily fantasy projections for this game. Remember, all of our projections are available at linestarapp.com, so check that out. Let's start off with the Tampa Bay Bucs and Tom Brady, who, despite the team's struggles, is still 6th in the league in passing yards. Going up against a Baltimore Ravens defense that struggled in the beginning of the season, however, they're much improved, 12th in passing DVOA. What do you make of Brady's outlook for fantasy?
I think Brady's outlook is okay. He is throwing the ball at a crazy amount right now, especially considering his age. But they're literally just putting it all on him. They can't run the ball. This offensive line is really struggling. So I would expect Brady to throw the ball a lot. It's probably going to be a shorter A-dot throws, but he's going to have a lot of chances to make something happen.
They've really been struggling in the red zone, though. Last season, 67%, ranked 5th in the league. This season, 47.4. That ranks 27th. Not something we're used to seeing with Tom Brady. And then points per game, 30.3 last season. And then this season's just 17.7, which is a bit surprising to see.
Yeah, I think it's just the O-line issues. I mean, they need to figure that out.
Let's look at wide receiver Chris Godwin. The offense struggles are, like you said, one of the key points of focus for them this week. The Ravens secondary, as I mentioned, they are improving but are susceptible to big plays.
Yes.
What do you see for Chris Godwin's outlook in fantasy this week?
So Godwin is the first read on most of the plays for Brady. He's been targeted a ton when he's been out there. His ADOT is also a little shorter than Evans. And so with the O-line troubles, I would expect a few more targets to go Godwin's way than Evans. So I do like him for captain or MVP here. He just doesn't have the upside as Evans with the big plays.
The beneficiary, I guess, of that struggling rush offense is the fact that the wide receivers are going to get more targets, like you mentioned.
Totally. And both Evans and Godwin got peppered last week. I think Godwin had 13 and Evans had 17.
Speaking of Evans, 96 yards last week against the Panthers, averaging 76 yards per game. Going up against the Ravens pass defense, again, that's prone to some big plays. What do you see for Evans' outlook?
If the Bucs are able to protect Brady a little bit and he gets a little more time, I really like Evans as a captain play. You talked about how the Ravens are susceptible to the big play. Evans is your guy for that. He got targeted a crazy 17 times last year, and he just really has way more upside than any other player in this game.
Let's take a look at that running game and Leonard Fournette, who has been struggling this season. The O-line specifically, you alluded to their struggles. They rank 28th in adjusted line yards. And Fournette has struggled, ranks 55th in yards after contact, 48th in Pro Football Focus's elusive rating. So really hasn't been able to get much done. What do you make of his prospects for fantasy this week?
And I expect that to continue. Where Fournette really can succeed is in the passing game and the dump-offs. He has a lot of really good value with that, gets targeted a lot. So with that being said, I like him a lot more on DraftKings than I do FanDuel just because of the scoring and full point PPR versus half point.
Another interesting play here for fantasy is tight end Cade Otton. With Cameron Brate out of this game, that creates a lot of opportunity for him. He had 64 yards against Carolina last week. That was a season high for him. And going up against a Baltimore team that's 24th in DVOA against tight ends. What do you like about this play?
Yeah, he's just coming in pretty cheap. And when Brate has been out, he's been targeted a decent amount. He's going to be another option. And with Gage out, the middle of the field area may be a little more open for Otten to work.
All right. So, bit of a sleeper pick there, maybe?
A little bit.
Let's take a look at the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson, who is having a phenomenal season. He's got the fourth best odds to win the MVP this season. And since week 4, though, he has struggled a little bit, QB 16, in terms of fantasy points per game. However, the Bucs pass defense has some holes, and we all know that he likes to rush the ball a lot. Mariota, Trubisky, P.J. Walker had a completion percentage over 66. Could this be a get-back-on-track game for Lamar Jackson?
I absolutely think it can. This secondary is very beat up. Jackson absolutely can beat you through the air and on the ground with his rushing upside, his throwing ability. I really like Jackson in this spot, and I usually don't like quarterbacks in the captain or MVP spot. Jackson is an exception to that rule with his rushing ability. Right. I really like him in the captain spot.
He's averaging 7.7 yards per rush. And the Tampa Bay Bucs rush defense, 16th rush yards per game. So he's in a good spot for today. I love seeing Lamar Jackson for Thursday Night Football. Now let's take a look at tight end Mark Andrews, who put up a bit of a goose egg last week against Cleveland, which was surprising to see because he's a favorite target of Lamar Jackson. And Tampa Bay ranks 15th in DVOA versus tight ends. What do you think of Andrews in terms of fantasy for tonight?
I really like Andrews. He's getting like a WR1 like target share. Yeah. The one thing with him is that he doesn't have the yard upside that, say, Evans does. So I like him. I do think he might be a little overpriced if you're going to try and put him in the captain spot. But he's Lamar Jackson's number one option. So
some other options for Lamar Jackson, we'll look at the wide receivers, starting with Devin Duvernay, who's averaging 40 yards per game this season. When you look at the Bucs defense, they've allowed DJ Moore to put up 69, Chase Claypool put up 96 over the past 2 weeks. So they do have some cracks in that pass defense. What do you think of his prospects?
Yeah, and there may be more cracks now with more of the secondary hurt here. But I really like Duvernay. Duvernay can create a big play. The other thing is if Bateman is out, his usage should go way up. So make sure you're watching if Bateman plays. It is questionable.
You mentioned Bateman, questionable for this week. If he is in, what do you make of his prospects?
If Bateman's in, I really like him this week. We've seen he has a connection with Jackson. He can make a big play. And either of these wide receivers, Duvernay or Bateman, I do like as kind of a sneaky captain play.
All right. What are some other captain plays this week?
Obviously, Jackson, Mike Evans, Andrews, and then Duvernay or Bateman are my favorites.
And you got some sleeper picks for us, right?
Mm-hmm. So Duvernay, as we mentioned, Otten as well. Then with Russell Gage being out, pay attention to Scotty Miller or Brashard Perriman.
All right. So your sleeper picks. And remember, all of this information is available on the LineStar app, linestarapp.com. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, be sure to like this video if you're enjoying our content, subscribe to our channel, and sign up for notifications so that you can keep updated on all the video content that we've got coming out. Now it is time for our touchdown calls of the game. Tyler, who are you going to for an anytime touchdown? Week 8.
Going to Lamar Jackson's favorite target, the big man, Mark Andrews. He got a little bit of a goose egg last week, but he's going to come back with a vengeance and get in the end zone.
I'm going Gus Edwards, plus 140 for an anytime touchdown. Edwards had 2 touchdowns last week in his first game back. Welcome back. Bucs defense allowed Panthers running back Dante Foreman 118 yards the previous week. They've kind of struggled against the rush, and the Ravens O-line has been helping him out quite a bit. That ranked 3rd in Pro Football Focus's rating. Give me Gus Edwards for an anytime touchdown. You looked good last week.
I like it. He did. Welcome back, Gus Bus.
Now let's do our prop bets of the game in this one. Tyler, what's your play here?
We're going Leonard Fournette over 30.5 receiving yards. It's plus 105. I was pretty surprised to see plus money on this. He's hit it in 4 of the last 5. Baltimore is allowing 44 receiving yards a game to the running back. Fournette's been targeted a ton, and he's averaging 34 receiving yards. So the math is there. Brady needs to check down. Fournette over 30.5.
I'm going to Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson over 61.5 rush yards. That is minus 119 in the sportsbooks and is available on the Underdog and PrizePicks app. Links to that are below. And Jackson's averaging 82.2 rush yards per game over the last 6 games. So he's been turning it up a bit. He's hit the over in 5 of 6. And the Tampa Bay defense just allowed 181 yards to the Panthers running backs. So Lamar Jackson's in a great spot today to hit that 61.5. Take the over there.
Let's go.
I'm feeling Lamar Jackson breakout game maybe. This Tampa Bay team just
back
doesn't...
on track game. He had a couple pretty big games earlier in the season.
That's true. One of them being against my New York Jets.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with
other one,
Lamar
the Dolphins.
Jackson's great games this season.
Yeah.
Let's get to our game picks. Tampa Bay, just 1.5 home favorites in this one. What are you thinking here?
I'm going Baltimore. Across the board.
Oh, yeah.
So I just think Tampa Bay is having way too many issues with the O-line. I don't think it's going to be fixed in 4 days just because they had that short week. So we're going Baltimore.
TB12 hasn't lost 3 straight games in 20 years. It's going to happen this week. I'm taking the Ravens in this one. I mean, look at the Bucs team. They just lost to the Panthers, who had lost CMC, third-string quarterback, and then also lost to the Steelers and a rookie quarterback there in Pickett. And, you know, Brady's yelling at his whole team. I don't know. They just feel really out of sync to me, and the locker room vibe just seems off.
I totally agree. The one thing I would say, though, is when everything looks like it's totally has to go one way, usually ends up going the other way. So just watch it. If you see like 90% of the money going on Baltimore, probably hammer Tampa Bay.
Another important stat is Tom Brady is 15-4 against teams with bird mascots since 2013. Yep. In case anyone needed to know that. So
the hard-hitting news you need on the pre-snap podcast.
The kind of analysis you're getting on the pre-snap podcast.
How far back does that go?
2013.
2013? Okay.
Yep. But, you know, last time the Ravens won against Tom Brady, last time they faced each other, that was 2018. Ravens beat the Bucs 20-12. I think it's happening again. Should be a good one. Thursday Night Football, you know, yeah, the Bucs don't have a winning record in this one, but I think it'll be a good game. I know we haven't had the best of games over this Thursday night, but it should be a good one.
This one you would have thought earlier in the season, you're like, oh, that's going to be a good game.
Circle it on the calendar.
Yeah, and we very well could end up with what we've had lately. It's Russell Wilson's show.
Also the over-under
45.5.
45.5 is the game total in this one. What are you thinking here? This is a tough one, especially with all the injuries.
Bucs are just having a real hard time moving the ball. I would have to wait to really see what's up with the secondary of the Ravens to really bet on that one. If they're hurt, then maybe over.
Take the over.
If they're playing, I'm be taking the under.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the over as well. The GOAT going up against Lamar Jackson, one of the best playmakers in the game.
Yeah. You notice what I just did right there? I just didn't take either one.
We got to hold you to it then.
I'm going to say the Ravens secondary plays. I'm going under.
Okay. That stipulation there, though. That's going to do it for our Thursday Night Football analysis. Have fun. Good luck to you in all your daily fantasy, prop bets, all of it. Go win some money. Good luck, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you later, guys. Bye.